Hey, what's going on? It's Scott. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran and law enforcement veteran, and I teach police officers nationwide now on how to stay alive and thriving. And I saw this clip that popped up on my home screen of YouTube. Of course, I clicked it because I read the words, defund the police. You know I've talked about that before on this channel, but Dr. Phil had a man named Kevin speak, and here's a clip of that.
I want to introduce y'all to a man who wouldn't even be sitting here today if it weren't for the police.
March 11, 2005, I was overwhelmed. I had spent 22 years not dealing with my pain, lying about who I was. Born and raised in Oakland, California, never talked about mental health, never talked about anything that had anything to do about feelings, emotions, and I got overwhelmed that day. And I drove myself to the Golden Gate Bridge, and on that day, I literally got out there, and the only thing that stopped me was that officer.
Okay, keep watching, because if you're in law enforcement, chances are you will get dispatched at some point to communicate with someone who is suicidal. Chances are someone watching this video is in a dark place. Chances are there's a law enforcement officer who's debating whether or not what they're doing in assisting others is worth any effort at all at this point, or you just need a general encouragement. I'm thrilled to tell you, I reached out to Kevin after he was on the Dr. Phil show. He accepted my invitation and I interviewed him. Here's part of that interview. Keep watching. You must listen to this. Kevin, I did notice you on the Dr. Phil clip. I remembered the picture of you on the Golden Gate Bridge. When you did get to the bridge and you jumped over to the other side of the railing, did you feel like you were in control of anything at that point?
Yeah, I feel like I was in control of getting myself out of pain. I'm in control of getting myself out of pain. Do I feel like I'm in control of anything else? Absolutely not, because if I was in my right mind, I wouldn't be at the Golden Gate Bridge, right?
Right.
So I understand that point. I understand that no, I didn't make a decision to die, because to me, that you're not in your right mind to make that decision. You're not making right decisions. So I had to really understand this, and through people telling me and learning, reading different books, that I didn't make a decision. So I probably was in control of me telling myself that I wanted to get out of pain, but I wasn't in control of Kevin. No.
But there was someone who sparked some hope in you. Can you elaborate on what happened on that bridge?
So most people don't realize, in order for me to get on the other side of that railing, I didn't climb, I didn't hover, I jumped. I jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and we have to make that clear. And I make that clear in every episode, every interview that I do, because you don't just magically get on the other. I jumped. And midair is when that voice kind of distracted me enough, and because I am an athletic guy, and the reason why I couldn't do this a million times over again if I had to, I literally grabbed the railing and put myself on this cord. Only place on the Golden Gate Bridge that has this 4-inch cord for me to land on. If I'd have picked any other place, who knows the story, right? So
wow,
I'm on this cord, and now I'm upset though, because he stopped me from what I thought was me being in control of getting in my destiny, as far as getting into that water and getting myself out of pain, right? So now I'm upset. So for at least 10 to 13, maybe even 15 minutes, I am yelling at him, and at any moment he could have gave up on me. And that's the part of the story a lot of people don't know about. They hear about the 92 minutes, they hear about the hope and all these, but they don't hear about the time in between time that he could have gave up at any moment and say, you know what, I can't, whatever. This guy's yelling at me. He don't want no parts of me, because I was very angry, and I yelled at him for at least 10 to 15 minutes before he was able to get close enough for us to even have this conversation. But in that, something happened in that 10 to 15 minutes, because something on the inside of me just snapped, and something on the inside of me said, why do you even care? Because he didn't make me feel like I was making myself feel. I knew the situation I was in, sir. It's not one of my proudest moments at all. And so I understand the situation of what it is. But for some reason, he was able to normalize it to a point where we were sitting at a couch. I don't know how. When you're not in a dark place, you have a gift to a person, because you are out of that dark place. So it was just that compassion in his voice. He was very calm, very patient, and he was very understanding.
I approached it very slowly and asked his permission for him to allow me to come up and speak with him.
Sergeant Kevin Briggs, whose job was to patrol the bridge for the Highway Patrol, said he didn't do much talking.
That's what a lot of people need, is just someone that will listen to them.
I needed him to be all the three things. And to give the understanding, he was all those three things. And something on the inside of me said, why do you even care? And that allowed him to get close enough to where I can hear his voice. And see, another tidbit about the story, my head stayed down the whole time. My eyes stayed closed. Important part of my story is I'm an African-American man from Oakland, California, which means that in 22 years of living, I never had a good relationship with cops. And if I would open my eyes and knew that was not only a cop, but a white cop, I wouldn't be here today. We would not have had this conversation because of who I was then, because of the environment I grew up in, because I'm from Oakland, California, because what my environment tells me what cop is. Don't talk to the police, don't look at the police, don't have anything to do with the police. And because my own understanding of things that I've already experienced with the police, nothing is going to get me to open up about my most vulnerable, deepest, darkest thoughts to the police. So that's the first part of what people need to understand, that sometimes your what you're looking for as far as help, it's not going to always look like you. We are waiting for our saviors to look like family members or people that of the same religion or the same race, and it's not about that. Connection is the connection, and me and Briggs have nothing in common. Okay,
Right.
Nothing. History will tell you that we are not even, a white man from Marin and a black man from Oakland, California are never supposed to cross paths.
You were meant to cross paths.
Not in that, but
Right.
this is the world we live in. That's why I'm trying to tell people, like, this is the world I lived in too, until that moment. And if it wasn't for this compassionate man who was understanding compassion, I never let my head stay down. I never looked up, never. So this whole 92 minutes of me opening my whole life up was based on me thinking that I was talking to a stranger. Why? One, it's because I would do that for somebody. I was under the understanding that it was a human.
I didn't know you had your head down and eyes closed the whole time.
Yeah, I didn't meet Briggs until 8 years later. I went 8 years not talking about that day.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Not dealing with that day, not dealing with anything that had to do with that day. And 8 years later, by the grace of God, my mom wrote him a letter thanking him for saving my life that day and being my guardian that day. And he held on to that letter. 8 years later, AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, who they honor, somebody every year for a Lifesavers Award. They was honoring Briggs that year. And, he gave them the letter. They reached out to my mom. My mom kind of persuade me to get to New York without telling me why I was getting out there. And I got out there and I talked openly for the first time on a radio station interview, which prepared me for knowing that I was going to meet Officer Briggs from the picture. I just, because we never had contact. I never knew he was a cop. I never knew anything about him. But the moment I shook his hand, it was a life-changing moment. Meeting him for the first time, and everything about me changed. In that moment, every cop became law enforcement. I understood that you guys are human, and you put on that uniform on, and we forget that you have wife, kids, you have fears, you have doubts, you have bills. We forget that. And so not only do I travel around and I share my lived experience, I am assigned to merge the gap between civilian and law enforcement, because he was a part of my story, and I can't tell my story without him.